From time to time, I bring to you some very special people and have them talk with me and, of course, with you about their life and their work. Today, I don't need to introduce my special guest because he's well known, very much part of St Michael's wider community. That's Dr Ian Gawler. Some years ago, we gave him our St Michael's Medal, and we're very proud that he is a recipient of that and has gone on, of course, to do great work in helping people cope with the serious tasks of living, especially when they've been diagnosed with cancer and are facing the difficulties and the challenges that are involved in coping with cancer. So I'm going to introduce him to you in this context today, Dr Ian Gawler. Would you welcome him? Oh, welcome. Have a seat there. Sometimes I not only introduce my guest, but also commend their book. But you'll notice that I'm not only commending one book today, I'm commending two, both of which, by virtue of the pieces of markers in the paper, would indicate that I have read these books and read them with great appreciation. So I'm delighted to be able to tell you that today the book You Can Conquer Cancer is available in the church hall for you to buy. It is, in fact, a reconstruction of an earlier book that he wrote some years ago and has a fund of information that everyone should have anyway, cancer or not. It's really about living and living a life that hopefully can prevent you falling into the pitfalls of illness anyway, cancer notwithstanding. And the other book, written a little earlier, says The Mind That Changes Everything. In fact, both books are talking about the mind. And so Ian Gawler, talk to me about the mind. Do you really believe the mind can change everything?
As a one-liner, I think it's a good one, Francis. I think life tells us that there's often exceptions to things, but in the main, it's the mind that changes everything because it's the mind that decides what we do. So whether we keep things on a physical level and think about, well, what do we eat or what do we drink, do we exercise or not, it's the mind that regulates all those sorts of things. If we think about emotionally, it's the mind that decides who we hang out with and how we manage our anger and how we develop love in our life.
The mind. Both books say the mind. It's although it's a simple one-liner, sometimes the mind, things are too big for the mind in a sense, aren't they? But the mind nevertheless can help us meet that challenge.
Yeah, and I think when you come across people who've been overwhelmed by what's going on in their mind, or if you've been in that situation yourself, as I imagine many of us would have been, we realise how disturbing and how distressing that is. And I suppose in my work with cancer, I've seen people who've been incredibly competent in so many aspects of their lives and then get confronted by what seems to be an overwhelming diagnosis and just completely fall to pieces.
But there's a but, isn't there? I read from your books that nevertheless many of them put their life together.
Yeah, and I think again it's about how do we regulate our mind, how do we train our mind, how do we support it, how do we get the best out of it.
You speak quite a bit about the quiet mind, the quiet place. We're very much in favour of quiet places.
Yes, that's why I like being here.
And some of you know, of course, our quiet place of Mingri. I'm pointing that direction. I should point in this direction. That's there and used by many people. And then, as we heard the music this morning, I thought, that's music for the quiet place, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, Mingari was such an inspiration. I think that might have been yours originally. And it was such a wonderful idea to create this quiet space and to do it so beautifully in the midst of such a busy place like a major city. And I think it's a real issue for so many of us that life just seems to get busier and busier, and that connection with the inner quiet and that quieter aspect of our life is harder for people to maintain unless, again, they make a formal commitment to prayer or meditation or some sort of way of taking time out of the busyness to reconnect and maintain that sense of balance that the silence brings.
Yes, I noticed your word just now, reconnect. I mentioned earlier that I saw Muriel Pearson in her time in her dying time, nevertheless reconnect. Mm-hmm. When you speak about reconnect, what do you mean? Reconnect with what?
Well, I think if we're talking about that inner silence, we're actually talking about the more enduring, sacred aspect of the human being. And if we put that in the context of the mind, it seems that if we investigate the mind, it's pretty obvious that it has two aspects. It has this thinking mind, which gets caught up in all the busyness, and then it has this deeper stillness of mind, which is an aspect of the mind which is beyond the thinking part and takes us back into that deeper stillness. And if we're thinking about where we can reconnect with the divine, with the sacred in our life, it's not in the busyness, it's in the stillness.
You've been through it yourself in a major way. That is, been through it. I'm talking about the real trough.
Through life.
The real trough of life.
But yeah, I've had a dramatic life.
Yes, you have. And we can't help but notice that you're not using these things for fun, are you?
You're very astute.
I notice.
I wondered if you'd notice.
And I've got a sense of humour as well.
Well, the funny thing is, so many people notice but don't say anything, and it amazes me how, I get into a lift or I meet people, and I would have thought the obvious question is, what the hell happened? If I can use that word here. But it's only, once people get above 3 years of age, it seems that question's like taboo. The 2s and the 3-year-olds will ask.
No, I think if you got into the lift with me, I'd say, you've only got one leg.
Right. But you're very astute.
Yes, very observant. Yes. And you cope with it with such, you cope with life with such, dare I say, aplomb or courage, and bring a lot of that spirit to others. You must have helped, thousands of people?
Well, it'd be nice to hope so.
Hope so. You know that Ian Gawler's wellness program, the pamphlets will be available today, are available today in the hall to tell you about his wellness program. And in fact, if you buy the book, you can find at the back of the book his website address. You can see that, so that you can pick up many things, the ways in which he's been helping people through the centre over, how many years?
It's a bit over 30 now, 32 I think.
30 years, you see. That is extraordinary. Tell me about, which book will I take first? The Mind That Changes Everything. What would you say about this book? I think this is a terrific book. I have no doubt in saying that. I sometimes listen to the programs on the radio where people are commending certain books, and I have learnt not to buy certain books by virtue of who's commending them. So I watch very carefully when I commend the book. I want to read the book to say, yes, I can say yes to that book. And that is one book I think would help anybody. It sets out, it says 48 creative meditations that will enrich your life. So what would you say to me about this book yourself?
Well, I think the key point, Francis, is that most of us, were born, grew up, developed into adult life. I think most people here are adults, with this incredible asset called our mind that we basically got no formal training with. We picked up lessons along the way here and there, but we never really sat down and in a premeditated way said, how can we actually train our mind? How can we get the best out of our mind? And it's such a resource. And all the great neurophysicists and neurobiologists tell us that we use only a fraction of our mind's potential. And we hear story after story of people who've been in all sorts of challenging or difficult or extreme situations and use their mind in creative ways or different ways or inspired ways to find solutions and find a way through. And so what I've been really interested in this book is to set out a pathway in which people can actually understand their mind, how it works in simple and easy ways to understand, but then more about that, work out how you can actually train it and apply it in day-to-day situations so that you can gain that sense of inner peace that we've been alluding to, but also be both efficient and proficient in whatever it is that you do.
In this book you say, just to emphasise, the mind's creative power is vast, while its effects can be destructive or constructive, depending on how it is used. All the workings of the mind involve the use of images. And the book speaks again and again, as does this one, about how we can train ourselves to use good, positive imagery. And I have to tell you, you're going to hear a little bit more about that in a few moments. But I think this is a great book, and I commend it to you. It so happens that we don't have it on sale today, but I'm assured that we'll have it on sale next week. The book we do have on sale today is You Can Conquer Cancer. Don't run from the title too quickly, because as I said before, this is a book that really gives a wide coverage of ways to live better. Yeah, better. So what would you say about this book, Ian?
Well, in picking up on what you're saying, Francis, I would, again, I'd really encourage people to buy and study You Can Conquer Cancer, because I've been helping people with cancer for over 30 years. And what I've learnt in that time is what is the very best way to treat cancer.
And you got here...
Do you know the best way to treat cancer?
Tell us.
It's to not get it. It's to prevent it. And the whole point, I think that the best point I can make for people today is to understand that cancer is a highly preventable illness. And I've had this extraordinary good fortune to recover from a very difficult cancer myself. I've had the extraordinary good fortune to work with lots of people who've developed cancer and to help them through that. I've seen a lot of people recovered. I've helped a lot of people who've died with cancer. What's clear, the message that I would say would come from anybody who's had cancer, is this is something you'd rather not have. And, well, a lot of people find that it can transform their lives, because in the adversity of the situation, I imagine that's probably what you're alluding to, that people do change their lives for the better and feel that provoked by the illness, they're actually better off. But if you could get that lesson without having to get sick, that would be even more useful.
That would be a plus, wouldn't it?
And that's what the book's trying to help people with, is how can you actually give your life full attention? How can you get the best out of your life, whether it's through what you eat or how you manage your relationships, how you manage your mind, what you do in your spiritual life? How can you get the best out of your life? And it's recognising the fact that when we're really well, illness doesn't have a part of that.
Yeah. In fact, you give a number of wellness rules, yes, which I think are terrific. How many of them altogether?
Oh, gosh.
Well,
there's quite a few.
Quite a few. They're there for you to read. And as I said earlier, the book is really packed with a lot of good material for living. This is the aim
yes.
of it, really?
Yeah, when I rewrote it, I talked with quite a lot of people about giving it a new title, because You Can Conquer Cancer is quite a strident title, but the book was first written in 1984, and in those days people got cancer and they thought they were going to die. It was a very strong sort of prevailing cultural view, and the book was really intended to challenge that view and to point out in a strong way that other things were possible, like you could actually recover. But there's a lot in there about prevention, and I think unfortunately for people who don't have the benefit of a conversation like this, it's mainly people who've got the illness that read it. I would really like to see a lot more people read it from the point of view of wanting to avoid the thing in the first place.
Indeed. I think I said this at the other launching of this book. Everybody should read it anyway, long before you start saying, "Oh, I've got it. How long do I have to live?" Not a good question to have in front of you. In the book too, I marked the spot, and then of course I've lost the place, where you speak about hope. We put in the service today various themes of hope. Hope is very powerful, isn't it? Part of the mind's process. What would you say about it?
Well, it's incredibly powerful. And if you take the opposite, hopelessness, when you meet somebody who's in a hopeless situation, it's really sad. People get very despondent. And what we see in the health arena is that if that's really strong, you get this whole pointing of the bone type effect.
Yeah.
So if people are given a bad diagnosis of cancer badly, in a way that takes their hope away, it's almost that pointing of the bone effect of the impact of the diagnosis that can be fatal in its own right. So one of the important things, I think, in embarking on any endeavour, whether it's to recover from cancer or a project you might have at work or bringing up your kids or whatever it might be, is to have that element of hope that you can actually get a good outcome. And for hope to be realistic, there needs to be a sense that there are things that you can do that will actually engender that outcome.
You might be interested to know that I'm presently extending our SAGE program for older people, and that we're setting up what I've called a HOPE project, helping older people engage, H.O.P.E.
It's a nice acronym.
Hope that we all need to be part. Many older people say, "I don't want to do anything to do with age," and they pull back and disengage. But engaging, part of your book was about this too, I think, is to say being engaged in a positive way with positive emotions, a good sense of keeping hope alive is what we need. Funnily enough, religion has been about that, but it's got tangled up with a lot of other gunk, hasn't it? I can say that.
Yes,
you can't say that.
You're the astute one.
I'd like to thank you for coming today and allowing us, of course, to bring these terrific books before us. Your writings, as well as what you do, fills me with admiration, and I mean that sincerely. And I hope that many people will be part of this movement of being informed and aware and being people of hope and goodwill and good emotions. Would you thank him for today?